of now. It is Friday, October 2nd, and this morning I'm going to be joined by Miranda Yavor. She's a postdoctoral scholar from UCLA and an expert of constitutional law and public health policy. And we usually do a segment called What's on the Ballot, where we discuss different ballot initiatives and candidates. But this morning, it's all about Donald Trump's positive COVID-19 diagnosis. This is the AM Report. All right. Welcome to the program, Miranda Yavor.
Good to be back.
Though, how's it going, Miranda?
You know, 2020 never disappoints. Just one thing after another, and it's. I don't think any of us are getting very much sleep these days.
No, you're telling me, and we were tweeting back and forth last night a little bit after the news broke. So we're going to break this down for everybody this morning about Donald Trump and Melania Trump's positive COVID-19 diagnosis. So last night, sort of early in the evening, we learned that Hope Hicks, who is a White House staffer and close advisor and confidant of the president, had tested positive for COVID-19, and that she was traveling with the president this week, and that Donald Trump was quarantining out of a sense of caution. So after this, it became clear to me that it was a little bit odd that Donald Trump was quarantining after this news, because Hope Hicks had learned not earlier than today. She had learned that she was positive for COVID-19. Now, if that was true, then Donald Trump would have surely been tested already, and people were already speculating. And before the night was over, we got the news out of a tweet from Donald Trump, and then the networks broke it, that he and Melania Trump have tested positive for COVID-19. So how did you learn about this, and what are your initial thoughts about it?
Yeah, so I learned about it last night when I looked at his Twitter feed. I'm one of those masochists who gets a notification whenever Trump tweets, and I was out watching the Dodgers game, and I think there were a couple of words of profanity that came out of my mouth as I was sort of reacting and processing this information. Though it's not terribly surprising given the lack of caution with which the president has been operating. He's been holding large rallies. He's been traveling with a large number of staff. There haven't been mask mandates within the White House as far as we know. And so all of these things really accumulate to creating a lot of risks. Now, it is surprising that we only found this out hours after we found out about Hope Hicks, because the president has access to rapid COVID testing pretty much whenever he wants it. And I'm a completely unimportant person, and I got a rapid COVID test result last week in about 15 minutes, and thankfully I was negative. So, if I can do it, the president can do it. So it is interesting that we had this long lag time. There are a lot of concerns because the president, debated Vice President Biden this week. He was meeting with Amy Coney Barrett. MSNBC had a long list of people with whom Hope Hicks and the president had both been in contact recently. And, it really implicates the line of succession, as well as other people within the White House. So this is a really big deal.
Speaking of that, let's take a look at some of the people that Hope Hicks has traveled with over the last few days. This is the front page of the New York Daily News. So it looks like we got Rep. Jim Jordan, Rudy Giuliani, Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Stephen Miller, Kayleigh McEnany, and Miranda. We do know that Amy Coney Barrett obviously has been meeting with the president in advance of her Supreme Court confirmation hearings that we now know Senate Republicans are planning on railroading through. So what's the implications for this? If Donald Trump is positive, right now we're hearing that he's not he's not gravely ill. He's got some mild symptoms, but apparently Hope Hicks is very sick, and Donald Trump is in a very vulnerable demographic. He's a senior citizen in his mid 70s. He's 74 years old, and he is, moderately to severely overweight. Even though he claims to be in good health, he's really not. And so, what are the implications of this, and what do we need to be prepping for here?
Yeah, so I mean, one concern, and this extends well beyond COVID, but it's that we really have to take with a grain of salt information that this White House gives us. This is a president who lies a lot. This is a White House administration that lies a lot. And so one concern is that we won't necessarily get the best information about the president's condition. My initial first take was, oh gosh, I wouldn't wish a bad case of COVID on anyone, to be clear, but if it's a mild case, is this going to reinforce it's just the flu mentality? But with respect to people with whom he's been meeting, with Amy Coney Barrett, if she's been exposed, the hearings were scheduled to begin in less than 2 weeks, or about 2 weeks. And so that's less than 2 weeks. And so, that's a real concern, because there's a quarantine period if you have been exposed to was tested positive. So, even if she doesn't become symptomatic, she could be an asymptomatic spreader. And so there's going to be, there could potentially be a delay in the Supreme Court confirmation hearings. And obviously the longer the delay, the less likely she would be seated before the election. Of course, Mitch McConnell did say that he would be willing to seat her during a lame duck period, even if the Republicans lose, because the Republicans would still be in charge.
Right, Miranda. A lot of the speculation, and we're getting some comments online from our viewers. Marilyn says it is what it is, which is, of course, what Donald Trump's very popular, not popular, but now infamous response to the COVID-19 deaths was it is what it is. And what do you all watching feel about this, about the diagnosis, and what are your thoughts about it? I'd like you guys to chime in and let us know. But Miranda, a lot of the speculation, and we're just going to go into it because I think it's important to note that this social media and the public reaction to this has been varying from skepticism to shock, and there has been lots of social media conjecture. And I want to bring it up without being crass. And of course, I do wish the president a speedy recovery if he is ill. I think it's only a terrible thing and would never wish anybody any illness whatsoever. But is this speculation warranted? We know that Donald Trump has a long history of lying, and a lot of social media conjecture that he may be making it up or that this is some sort of hoax. I'm not sure what the motivation behind that would be, although there seems to be some incentive. What do you think about that speculation that's happening online?
Yeah, so I definitely saw a lot of speculation that he might be lying, potentially because he didn't perform well in the presidential debate, if we want to use the word debate very liberally. Is this something where he's not doing well so he can blame it on COVID, or, he doesn't want to do another debate so he wants to say that he's symptomatic or contagious. I'm inclined to believe that because he had a close contact who tested positive, that I'm inclined to believe that he tested positive. My concern is that we won't get accurate information about sort of the severity of the condition, and sort of the extent to which he can or should be performing his duties as president versus whether that should be, sort of going more to Pence. I don't, if you didn't have this contact of Hope Hicks, so if we noted to have tested positive, maybe I think more skepticism would have been warranted. But I'm inclined to believe that this information is correct. Like I said, one big concern that I have is that if he has a swift recovery, and certainly we wish the president well, that it's going to reinforce this argument that it's a nothing burger. It's not something that needs to be taken with the seriousness that the Democrats and public health experts and other scientists are demanding.
Well, it's very important to note, Miranda, this president, speaking of the debates, I'm going to pull up a clip for our viewers of Donald Trump during the debate this week with Joe Biden, and I'd hate to subject you all to this again, so I apologize in advance. But this was Donald Trump talking about Joe Biden and his masks, wearing masks in public.
I don't have to wear masks like him. 100 feet away from me, goes up to the biggest mask I've ever seen. I don't have to.
So, it's a short clip. Basically, Donald Trump on the campaign trail has been mocking Joe Biden and his wearing of masks. He mocked Joe Biden for masks. On the debate stage in front of millions of Americans, he's called coronavirus a hoax. He has downgraded coronavirus. We know we had the Woodward tapes that revealed that he knew about the severity of the coronavirus back in February and lied to the American people about it. And so for a lot of people, there's a lot of anger about this diagnosis and what he's continuously putting the American people through because of his recklessness and his disregard for human life, for public health policy. And you are a public health expert, so I'd like you to speak a little bit to the ramifications in terms of what this means for the public health in general and the sway of public opinion about coronavirus.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to know that the president has his own physician. He has access to the best public health experts. He has access to rapid COVID testing and the testing of everyone around him to make sure that everyone around him is COVID negative as of the time that they're interacting with the president. He has professional cleaners to wipe down every surface. He has every resource imaginable, and he still contracted it, which tells you something about the contagiousness of this public health pandemic. Which makes it less than surprising that so many people have contracted it, that so many people have died from it. We've known for a long time that his continuing to hold these rallies where we've seen a lot of pictures that have shown no social distancing, very few, if any, masks. And we know that this is a recipe for disaster. And unfortunately, the president the president and Hope Hicks are both experiencing some of the consequences of this. I have to get in the little jab that during the presidential debate, not only did he act as though his not wearing a mask constantly was a sign of, masculinity, but he acted as though there weren't consequences of his holding these large rallies that in defiance of public health orders, and he seemed to have forgotten what happened to Herman Cain. But I hope that the fact that someone this high profile has contracted coronavirus will help his supporters to realize that it isn't a hoax. But I'm also not very optimistic that his having experienced this virus is going to make him more empathetic to the millions who have contracted or lost loved ones to the virus.
And Miranda, we have a comment, a question. Do you think Trump could be using this to bolster his support in advance of the elections? Bolsonaro's approval rating went up after he contracted COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to speculate about that. I think that, one challenge is going to be sort of navigating the fact that he won't be able to be on the campaign trail and that he will be able to blame it on something other than the fact that he has been down in the polls for a very long time. He can attribute this to something that was not entirely. Well, I mean, it was certainly in his control to a large extent, but not entirely. So I think he'll have an out in terms of if he does poorly. I'm assuming that there will be some rallying effect among the right wing of the Republican Party. But the challenge for President Trump right now is that there are not very many undecideds. And when we look at American politics today, right now, it's not very surprising that there are not a lot of undecideds. A lot of public opinion is pretty fixed, and people are already voting. And so that is probably going to temper the extent to which people are going to respond in terms of public support for the president.
Yeah, and I think also just really important to note that this is the same president who, as I said before, has been mocking the coronavirus, calling it a hoax, holding public rallies, encouraging his supporters to go to public rallies. These are people who are anti-mask, holding anti-mask protests in public and downplay the severity of the virus. I feel like, will it harm his own, will it bolster his own supporters? I don't think so. I think his own supporters are pretty set in stone. And in fact, there's a lot of pro-Trump trolls and bots online, and we've just got one to support us here, Bob Marsh one. But they are usually out in droves whenever you post anything about the president. And last night, the troll bot operation was dead silent. I think that this may have really stunned them because no one is exactly sure what happens now or where we go or what this means. So I'm not sure that this helps the president. I think it just made the case that the president has not been taking the coronavirus seriously. Alternatively, if he wants to come back from this, maybe if he is being dishonest about his positive diagnosis, which of course there's no indication that he is, but if that were the case, he gets to come back and say, "Look, I defeated it. I beat the coronavirus. It's a nothing burger." That's my Trump impression.
Right.
Thank you. So I think there's still yet to be seen. We know that we're waiting to hear from Joe Biden about this, and we'll see what the implications are and who else is sick. I think that's going to be very important as we look to the Supreme Court confirmation hearings and the Senate. And, this is unprecedented 30 days out from an American presidential election. So,
I think if this reminds us of anything, it's that the virus doesn't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. The only way in which the virus discriminates between Democrats and Republicans is that one party has been taking the virus more seriously and thus has been doing a better job of, taking the necessary public health precautions. And I don't want to overgeneralize about the Republican Party, but there has been more skepticism about the science of coronavirus within that party. But I do hope that having such a high-profile case will at least remind people that this is serious, and the mere fact that we're not talking constantly about the number of deaths and the number of cases in the way that we were in April, for example, does not mean that the virus has gone away. We're still having about 750 to 1,000 or more deaths every single day from coronavirus. So it's not like we have gotten through the first wave and we're just waiting for it to pick up again. We're still in it. And I hope that this serves as an important reminder to that, even though it's obviously going to have huge political implications as well.
Thank you so much, Miranda. This has been the AM Report with Alex Mahajer for HAPS News, the network of Now. I've been joined this morning by Miranda Yawver. Miranda, where can people find you and bat around with you?
I'm on Twitter at Miranda Yawver. Reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Very good. Someone says Alex's mustache is an October surprise, which is just hilarious. Pablo de la Hoya says it's so scary to see people out and about as if the virus is gone, and I agree with that. So this has been the AM Report. We are live every weekday morning at 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Eastern, with all of your quick political news and headlines. Enjoy your weekend. Try to just take this all in, and we will see you Monday morning with our next episode. And thanks everybody for joining. Thanks, Miranda.
Thanks so much, Alex.